Alright, e-commerce people, we're near the end of January here, and that means things are finally starting to speed up in the platform. But before we get into the full rush that is February, let's talk about all the different things you need to do to structure your campaigns throughout the year. And to do that, I want you to think about the long-term things. Let's dive into how to structure your campaign budget optimization within the Facebook platform, and let's also talk about creative development, that is the actual production of your creative this year. And finally, when we're thinking about these campaigns, let's dive into building actual campaigns for the stable of influencers you've been building all this year. And that's all ahead on this week's game plan. Hello, hi, and welcome once again to this week's game plan, a weekly series where we give you the details you need to scale your e-commerce business online week over week, channel by channel. Now, while you're building all the momentum within the Facebook platform, there's one weird little detail we have to go over, and that's the eventual switch that Facebook is going to force upon us this year to campaign budget optimization. i.e., rather than you directly managing all of your ads, the Facebook algorithm takes the wheel and does everything with AI algorithmically. Let's dive into how you need to be thinking about this with Josh Henry Hicks, the Director of Digital Marketing for Facebook here at Mute 6.
CBO, obviously a tool that is being forced upon Facebook advertisers sometime this year. We're not exactly sure when. And we use CBO really to obviously let the budgets be managed by Facebook. We're seeing this tool be used more and more from advertisers. We do feel as an agency that the product is getting more mature, and we feel that the decisions the algorithm is making is better than when it first started. I think if you asked across all the accounts we manage here at Mute 6, that would be a fact. That would be something that most campaign managers would say. Proportionally, we're using CBO at a higher percentage. So more on the tactics on how we use CBO. Definitely using minimums and maximums on the ad set level to help control the spend. So we're often seeing that Facebook is prioritizing the larger audiences within our campaign structure, and therefore we're having to actually put maximums or in some case minimum spend thresholds on each ad set. And what this allows us to do is allows us to control in some way the way that Facebook will distribute that budget. Which is really important as a marketer because, for the audiences that are listening and that you've used CBO, we often see that Facebook will prioritize the spend too far in one direction, and we'll have an ad set with a great ROAS or a great CPA that just doesn't get any spend. So to avoid those scenarios, we put in a minimum or we put in a maximum in some cases where the spend has been too great and the ROAS is just not there. So really, January is a time for testing new things, certainly exploring CBO on a greater level, and then making sure that we have those mins and maximums on the ad set level to really utilize CBO, which we're seeing as a great tool for marketers in the agency.
When we're thinking about this, you also have Google audiences, which we covered a little bit last year and we'll cover a little bit next week as well. But what you're seeing is this huge shift to algorithms managing basically everything if you're a marketer. This can be scary because we have a lot of details we need to be thinking about as marketers. So here's what I want you to focus on instead. Don't think about your campaign planning. I want you to think about creative instead. 2020 is going to be all about the shift from media spend management to making really solid creative. So if you're doing this right, you're thinking about this in a creative way and not in a ad spend way. And to get into that, let's go ahead and talk to David Addisman, the Executive Creative Director here at Mute 6.
Creative can be an expensive endeavor, and a lot of times it is really important for clients to figure out how to maximize and leverage those creative executions as much as possible. So there are a couple ways that I say to do that. One is you need to think as a client long-term, right? If we're going to do some sort of shoot, some sort of creative production, it may be slightly more expensive in the upfront to expand the scope of that production, but it'll be far more expensive in the long term if we don't do that and then have to do a second shoot later, right? The overhead costs for a creative production are very high. But fairly easy to expand the scope. Once you paid for the upfront of the production, you can end up expanding it and getting a lot more out of it. So it may be easier to put a little bit more investment in the short term for long-term goals. Another thing is figuring out nice, smart ways to leverage the production and the content that you're getting. So if you are going into a physical production, you have talent coming on set, it's really quite simple to send them home with a brief and have them shoot self-made testimonials for your product, and then you have more content to get. If you're going to do something that's editorial, think about making it something that's templatized so that it's easy to change. If it's going to be evergreen, that's great, but think about an approach that you can make it templatized to then work for your upcoming sales, Valentine's Day, President's Day, Mother's Day. These are ways that we can make sure that if we're putting in the investment and the cost, that they're going to play out for us. I think with quality and execution, it really comes down to two things. One, what are the points you're trying to get across? And two, where is this going to be? So if we're, for instance, creating content for Facebook or Instagram, a platform that people go on to see content made by friends, families, acquaintances, non-professionals, then it's much easier to create content that is lower in quality, that feels native to the platform, that may be shot on a cell phone or feel like it's shot on a cell phone, because that's what people are coming to that platform. If we're making it for YouTube, a platform where people come to for often entertainment, for higher quality videos, for tutorials, then we have to think being platform native. So that may require a bit more polish. The other thing is that it will depend on what we're trying to emphasize. If social proof is what we're really trying to get across with a certain concept or a piece of creative, then oftentimes quality can come at the expense of that. Seeing something that is polished, looks very much like a commercial, it may feel disingenuous to the viewer. So, we'll see a lot of times that compilations of selfie-style video testimonials talking about how much different talent like about a product. It's going to work a lot better on Facebook and Instagram than polished testimonial, someone sitting in a studio talking to camera.
And so the main thing is to have that long-term focus throughout January as well. So if you've been following this week's game plan since at least January, you should be developing a strong stable of influencers. So now that you've built those relationships to start, let's talk about how to build campaigns using that stable of influencers. And to do that, we'll go ahead and go back to Sarah Groves, the head of influencer marketing here at Mute 6.
Once you have a solid list of influencers, maybe you've worked with a few handfuls, you have them in your roster. And so as soon as they post, if your product needs to be refilled, I would actually reach out again, see if they would like to try, maybe it's a new flavor, maybe repeat the same product that you've sent them before, and then also offer them a new discount to share. Maybe it's a new promotion, or it's just a different piece of content that you'd like for them. That's how we retain a lot of our influencers without actually having a contract in place where they have specific deliverables. We see that might interfere with the creativity of their content, and we really like to give the influencers their own stamp of approval.
And that's essentially it. Again, you're still in this moment of long-term planning. You're still in this position where you can think about testing in a really long-term way. You're still at these lower CPMs on Facebook and Google, which means you can get experimental. So get in there, build some cool creative campaigns, and get influencers involved at every step of your marketing funnel, because that's a channel that's only going to go up this year. Either way, just stick to your plan, and that's been this week's game plan. Thanks for sticking around for our end screen here. Please, as always, like, comment, share, subscribe, all of the YouTube things. Make sure you also check us out at mute6.com/live and get on our email list so we can hit you up with other kinds of content. Maybe check out our podcast as well. And as always, we like to leave you with peace, love, and ROI.